Good night. Again, first and foremost, we want to acknowledge to our Father and our God in heaven that we are grateful for all of His love, mercy, and blessings. I don't know about you, I'm just glad God is God. Amen. I'm glad that God is God all by Himself. Amen. And that He doesn't need any help or solicit any help from us in His being God. And one of the reasons that I'm glad that God is because God has a better idea. God has a better idea because God knows more than we do. God is more righteous than we are, and His love transcends our love. So what God allows needs to be allowed, and what God withholds needs to be withheld. What God does needs to be done. I'm glad that God is God, and I'm glad that He's God all by Himself. The psalmist declares in Psalm 37, verse 5, he says, "Commit thy way unto the Lord. Trust also in Him, and He shall bring it to pass." That's the God we serve, and for all of God's blessings, we ought to be eternally grateful. I want to say again how grateful I am for all of your kindness, all of your hospitality, all of your encouragement. It has been an excellent time to be here. I was sitting there and Acts chapter 20 came to my mind. If you know Acts chapter 20, Paul went there to speak with the elders from the church at Ephesus. And right near the end of the chapter, it says that Paul prayed with them. And then they all began crying. And part of the reason they were crying is because Paul was leaving, but it's not just that he was leaving. Paul told them that they would never see him again. Now, I don't know why Acts 20 came to mind, because I just sure hope that's not the case with you and I. If it please God, I have every intention of coming back to Trinidad. If I have to make up a reason just to be here. If you have great weather, good food, and I have family here that I need to get to know better, that's all the reason that we need to come back. We have enjoyed this visit immensely, and very much look forward to the time that God will allow us to be with you again. Now, this evening, we want to direct your attention again to John chapter 11. And I want to read there in John chapter 11, verse 21, and then verse number 32. John chapter 11, verse 21. Then said Martha unto Jesus, Lord, if thou hadst been here, my brother had not died. And again in verse 32, then when Mary was come where Jesus was, and saw him, she fell down at his feet, saying unto him, Lord, if thou hadst been here, my brother had not died. Based on the account that we find recorded here in John chapter 11, we want to use tonight as a subject, don't limit God. Amen. Don't limit God. And as we consider the text that we have before us here in John chapter 11, I submit to you that whenever we ask God for something, there ought to be a spirit of great expectation because we have asked. Not because God owes us anything, but because God is faithful not only to us, but because God must be faithful to Himself. Whenever we ask, there is the spirit of expectation that God will do what we ask, or in many cases, God will do better than we ask.
True.
A story was told once about a preacher who was unhappy with the members of the congregation, and he was unhappy because they had come together to pray for rain. They had been experiencing a drought. And so they had appointed a day when the entire church would come together and they would spend time praying for rain because the drought had dried everything up. And the preacher let the congregation know that he was unhappy with them. And the reason that he was unhappy, he said, we've come together to pray for rain, and nobody has brought an umbrella. When we ask God for things, there ought to be the spirit of expectation that God is going to do something great.
Amen.
If we ask God for revival, then there ought to be the expectation that God is going to do something great. Amen. But we ought not limit God. And I submit to you that what we say we believe is not always the same as what we demonstrate that we believe when we live our lives. We declare God to be almighty, but we don't always live as if God is almighty. Amen. Because if, as a matter of faith, I believe that God is almighty, then when Philippians 4:6 says, be careful for nothing, I will stop worrying if I really believe that God is almighty.
Amen.
But sometimes we put limitations on God. I won't worry about everything, but there's still some things, Lord, help me, that I worry about. If, as a matter of faith, I believe that God is almighty, then the promise of John 16, verse 33 becomes my peace. You remember John 16:33, where Jesus said, these things have I spoken to you, that in me you might have peace. In the world you shall have tribulation, but be of good cheer, I have overcome the world. If I really believe that, then it doesn't matter what goes on in the course of a day. God is almighty, and I'm not going to put limitations on God. God can bless me no matter what happens. But when there is a problem with my faith, whatever the cause of the problem may be, the result of this is that we put limitations on God. The text indicates to us that Martha and Mary believed that Jesus could have healed Lazarus. But neither one of them seems to be open to the fact that Jesus could raise Lazarus from the dead. Do you hear what they both said? If you had been here, my brother had not died. The implication seems to be if you had got here before he died, you could have done something. But now that he's dead, what can be done? And as we look at John chapter 11, I submit to you that we will find that oftentimes in life we do, in principle, the same thing that Martha and Mary did in the matter of their brother. We put limitations on God. Now, mind you, I want to try to understand what Mary and Martha were going through, that they were dealing with a crisis. And when crises come into your life, I don't know about you, but when I have a crisis, what I want more than anything else is relief.
That's true.
Look, if I'm sick, I want to be better. If I'm lacking money, I want somebody to help. Whatever my problem is, the thing that I want more than anything is relief. But our desire for relief can be so strong that we forget that relief is God's job.
True.
See, my job is to trust God, to take whatever my concerns are to Him in prayer, and then let God provide the solution.
Amen.
And see, when we try to do God's job, or when we put limitations on God, we make a mess of things. You know, we can read in the Bible where people in a crisis try to work things out their own way. I think about King Saul back in 1 Samuel chapter 28. If you remember in 1 Samuel chapter 28, Saul saw the size of the Philistine army and he began to panic. See, in Saul's mind, we can't beat that big army. Now, mind you, Saul, it's not Israel against the Philistines. It's God against the Philistines. God is just using you all as a vessel to fight through. But Saul looks at the Philistines and he says, Lord have mercy, we can't beat an army of that size. And so he tries to reach out to God, and God won't answer him. He tries to speak to God through the prophets. He tries to pray. God just won't answer Saul.
And so Saul gets the idea, well, let me go find, now the Bible says a woman with a familiar spirit. If we want to call it what it was, Saul said, well, let me go find the witch. And let me ask the witch to help me. Now, let me tell you, when you're God's child, you don't need help from a witch.
Oh, God.
And I know some of us, sometimes if we're not careful, we kind of get caught up in some of that stuff. I got people ask me, did you read your horoscope today?
Well,
I don't read no horoscope. My father owns the universe. What in the world I want to check my horoscope for? My father has already told me how the day is going to work out. I don't need to check no horoscope for no good luck. In fact, I don't even believe in luck. I believe in God's blessing.
amen.
I haven't been lucky a day in my life. God has blessed me.
Thank you.
And I'd rather have God's blessings than good luck any day of the week.
Amen.
Because luck, if there was such a thing, luck is just kind of random. You get it when you get it. You have no control over it. God is in control all the time. I'd rather have God's blessings than luck. But you remember Saul goes down to the witch and he said, I want you to raise me up the spirit of Samuel. And you remember Saul ended up paying dearly for what he did. But he took matters into his own hands. I want some relief. I want somebody to tell me something comforting about these Philistines. Well, Saul, you just need to learn to wait on God.
Amen.
See, God is in control of our living. But I can sometimes like Mary and Martha, and sometimes like Saul, when we're going through things, we don't always rely on God to deliver us. I think we can be like that at times. Like Mary and Martha said, Lord, if you had got here before my brother died. And you ever had the conversation with God and you said, Lord, if you had done something before I lost my job. Lord, if you had done something before I got sick. If you had done something before my marriage fell apart. If you had done something before my children got in trouble. But there are at least two problems with trying to limit God. First of all, we put God on a timetable. And you can't put God on a timetable. Now, I don't know about you. Sometimes not only do I ask for what I want, but I know when I want it. Lord, if I'm sick, I want to be better right now. I don't have to deal with the sickness for 10, 15, 20 years and just rely on you to get me through. I'm sick and I want to be better right now. But there are at least two problems with limiting God by time. And the first one is that God is not bound by time like we are.
True.
We wear watches and have clocks on the wall and all of that kind of thing because time for us comes in limited amounts. The psalmist says we'll be here about 80 years and 10. We'll be here about 70 years or so. And so we get caught up in time in a way that God doesn't get caught up in time. See, God is everlasting. See, when you are from the beginning to the end, time is not a factor for you like it is for everybody else. In Psalm 50 and verse number 21, the psalmist declares, these things hast thou done, and I kept silence. Thou thoughtest that I was altogether such a one as thyself, but I will reprove thee and set them in order before thine eyes. I wonder if it ever occurred to Saul, if it's ever occurred to us, when I'm asking God something and God doesn't answer, that maybe God is trying to help us understand, I'm not bound by time like you are.
True.
See, you think time is getting critical. But God said, but I reign in the kingdom of men. Time is whatever I say it is.
True.
And the right time is whatever I say is the right time. Israel made the mistake of thinking that as they were, so was God. We got a limited amount of time in which something can be done. So Lord, we really need you to do something right now. But in truth, as God is, so we should try to be. Didn't Jesus say, as your Father in heaven is perfect, so be ye perfect? Rather than trying to put God in a bottle like we ought to try to become like God. But the second problem with trying to limit God by time is that we don't know what God knows. See, the implication of the text is that Jesus was aware of Lazarus being sick before the messengers arrived. Jesus knew that. Before the messengers got there, Jesus knew Lazarus was sick. In fact, look, Jesus has a conversation with the disciples about Lazarus being sick. And he says, we're going to raise up Lazarus. Lazarus is sick and he's asleep. And they said, well, if he's sleeping, then he's doing well. You know, when you're sick, sometimes what you need is some rest. You need some sleep. And Jesus had to tell them, no, he's not asleep like you sleep at night. He's dead. And the messengers had come to him prior to Lazarus dying. But Jesus just hung around for a little while. Well, why did Jesus hang around for a while? Because you can't limit God by time. See, what we may consider to be late, we consider late because we don't know what God knows. But how can you be late for anything when you're from everlasting to everlasting?
Well,
see, God knows what's going to happen tomorrow. How can he be late? Look, I could have been there yesterday if I wanted to, but I'm going to let it happen tomorrow because tomorrow is when it needs to happen. But listen to what Mary and Martha said. If thou hadst been here, there was a time that you could have done something, but now the time is too late. And Jesus had a plan in mind. See, I need Lazarus to die so that I can show you something more than what you were looking for. You know, sometimes God wants to show us more than what we're looking for.
amen.
You know, we're talking about we want a revival. We just want to work together better for the kingdom's sake. And God is saying, I want to show you something even bigger than that. But now for me to show you something bigger, things may not happen in the time frame that you would think.
Amen.
You know, we may have a time frame where 3 months from now we'd like to reach this goal, and 6 months from now we'd like to reach another goal, and 9 months we have a goal, and in a year we want to be able to look back and say, this is what we have accomplished. But you know, God may be saying, I've got another plan in mind, and the year is not enough time for me to work it out on your behalf. Don't limit God when God is not doing what you want him to do in the time you want it to be done.
Amen.
Lord, if you had been here, it really, so you're saying I can't do anything because I didn't get here before he died? And if you listen to them talk, Martha says in verse 22 rather, but I know that even now, whatsoever thou wilt ask of God, God will give it thee. Well now, Martha, if you know that, then why did you say if you had been here? If you believe that God will give me whatever I ask, why are you saying if I had been here? If you really believe that, then you know it doesn't matter whether Lazarus was dead or alive when I got here.
True.
The thing is, I'm here. And if God will do whatever, look, God can raise dead folks. You know, I'm not a geologist or anything else, but I don't think dirt is alive. I think dirt is a dead thing. But I read that the very first man that inhabited the earth, God made out of dirt from the ground. So God took what was dead and brought it to life. Well, if God could do it once, I just have faith that he could do it twice.
Amen.
If you had been here, my brother had not died. See, Mary and Martha had a thought process. And we don't want to limit God by time. And also, you don't want to limit God by reason. What I can think through in my mind. See, in the mind of Mary and Martha, well, if he gets here, he can touch Lazarus or say something and make him better. Sometimes that's the way we think. You know, when we have a problem, when we start thinking for God about how God ought to fix the problem I'm having. But do you know you limit God when you start thinking for God? Who in here knows what God knows? You know, what does it take to make a universe? You know, I have trouble just measuring out a few. Now, you don't use feet and inches here. I think you probably use centimeters and meters right here. You use the metric system. But when I'm at home trying to put up a picture on the wall, I have trouble measuring out a few meters, trying to hang a picture straight. But can you imagine trying to measure the earth? To set it in place, to spin in the air, to hang on nothing? And how I'm going to think for God and tell God how he ought to handle my problem. And do you know, my problem is not news to God. Do you know God knew about my problem before I knew I had a problem in the first place?
Amen.
And before I ever took the problem to God in prayer, that God not only knew my problem, but had provided a solution to my problem and already moved on to something else. See, I'm dealing with stuff that God has already moved on from because I'm not God. I don't know what God knows. See, Mary and Martha had a plan. And their plan involved, Lord, get here quick. If you look at Matthew chapter 11 and verse number 3, therefore his sisters sent unto him, saying, Lord, behold, he whom thou lovest is sick. Do you know what they were saying? Jesus, get here as fast as you can. Now that's Martha and Mary's plan. If you get here fast, you can do something before he dies. In their minds, until he dies, something can be done. But I need to be open to the fact that if I can come up with a plan, well, maybe God can come up with a plan too. And maybe God can think, this is what I think, but I ought to be open to the fact, well, maybe God is thinking. And since God knows more than I do, maybe God's thinking is better than my thinking. And maybe rather than having a plan that if God doesn't do my plan, then I get disappointed and disillusioned, maybe I just ought to let God do what he does and work things out. See, God knew, even if Martha and Mary didn't, that there were options available other than get there before Lazarus died. See, God knew that. In fact, God knew, look, it doesn't matter how long Lazarus is dead before I get there. Lazarus could have been in the ground 4 years and Jesus could have raised him up if he had so desired.
Amen.
Do you ever think maybe we sit around and we come up with one or two solutions and we pray with everything in us about God to do those one or two things that we can come up with? But did it ever cross our mind that maybe God has another option available to him other than what I was able to come up with? In Philippians 4, 6 and 7, Paul says, don't worry about anything. Now, if you know something about life, you can't just take something away. You have to replace it with something else. And God not only takes worry away and replaces it with something else, he replaces it with something better. God says, don't worry about anything. And that's what he takes away. He takes away worry. He said, now rather than worry, bring the matter to me and pray. And my peace, the peace of God. And let me tell you, the peace of God is a peace that you can't even wrap your mind around. The peace of God is such that all you can do sometimes is say, Lord Jesus, thank you.
Amen.
God will work things out. God will do things, and all you can do is be thankful.
That's
you
right.
couldn't figure it out if you wanted to. I get the impression when I read the text that God wants us to appreciate that he can do things that we never thought of. Here, Mary and Martha, Lord, get here quick. Drop what you're doing. And you notice how they said it, the one you love is sick. See, they're not just because people get sick all the time, but this is your real good friend that's sick. And let him take priority over whatever it is you might be doing elsewhere. Get here as fast as you can. And they say to Jesus, if you had been here, my brother had not died. Sometimes we limit God by our desire. And I get it. I understand that Mary and Martha didn't want their brother to die. I understand that. I think if my brother got sick, I'd pray for him. I don't want you to. I know we all will. And I know there's no getting around that. Hebrews 9:27 just says that it is appointed unto man who wants to die, and after this the judgment. I know that all of us will leave here at some point, but it don't necessarily have to be today if you're asking me. Yeah, I can understand they didn't want their brother to die. But this was about more than Lazarus dying. In verse 4, when they send the message, Lord, he whom thou lovest is sick. In verse 4, when Jesus heard that, he said, this sickness is not unto death, but for the glory of God, that the Son of God might be glorified thereby. See, they were looking at this problem, they were looking at it different from the very beginning. Mary and Martha see it as a crisis. That, Lord, if you get here before he dies, then we're okay. Jesus doesn't see it as a crisis. Jesus said, dying isn't any problem to me. I have the power of life and death. In fact, I need Lazarus to die so I can teach y'all something. You know, there are some lessons that we can't learn just by reading our Bibles.
True.
There are some things that we need God to show us for us to really understand who God is.
Amen.
You know, you can read Psalm 23 all you want to. Most of us can quote it by heart. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. And then you get to verse 4. You remember verse 4, David said, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Now that's one thing when you read it. That's something else when you actually go down into the valley and need God to lead you. See, that's two different experiences. See, when I read about the valley don't sound so bad, but when you go down into one, and you got to rely on God to lead you out, let me tell you, you learn something different from having been in the valley than you do just from reading about the valley. But notice what David said about the valley. He said it's the valley of the shadow of death. Do you know what a shadow is? A shadow is an image, but it has no substance. You know, when you want to talk about somebody that's just real scaredy cat kind of person, you say they're scared of their own shadow. Why? Because a shadow can't hurt you. And notice what David said, it's the valley of the shadow of death. See, when I walk with God, even death is a shadow. What did Jesus say in verse 25? I am the resurrection and the life. That is no factor to me. When you're talking about dealing with the Almighty God, even death is a shadow. It has no real substance. And we ought not be afraid of death. And in fact, if we listen to Paul, and you remember what Paul said, Philippians 1 verse 21, I have a desire to depart and to be with Christ, which is far better. And it amazes me, we talk about how bad this world is, and then we don't want to leave here. When I go to a bad place, I can't wait to leave. Yeah, you know, this is wrong, and that is wrong, and something else is wrong, and then we get sick. But Lord, help me get better, because I ain't trying to leave here. You want to stay in the worst place when God has somewhere better? Do we really believe that there's a life after this life?
Well,
sometimes we limit God by our own desire. Mary and Martha didn't want Lazarus to die. I'm not mad at them. I understand where you're coming from, Mary and Martha. But we have to be open to the fact that God can use us with rain just like he can with sunshine.
true.
You know, everything that God uses me for can't be something that moves me to smile. Sometimes God will use you with something that will bring you to tears. You know, if we could talk to some of the people from the Bible, man, one of the people I'd love to talk to is Job.
Oh, yes.
Man, I'd go to Brother Job and shake his hand and tell him, Brother Job, you don't know how many times you blessed my living. Sometimes I sit around thinking I'm, just in a bad case and feeling sorry for myself. And then I go back and read what you went through. You ever read Job and pay real close attention? There was a day. I mean, life was going good for Job. God had blessed him. He had possessions. He was walking with God. And then there was a day when his servants came to him and they said, all your children are dead. Now, I imagine it's enough to deal with the death of one child, but to lose all of them in one fell swoop, that by itself, I think, would have been enough to do me in. But then some other messengers show up. You know, one shows up, all your cattle are gone. And while he was still speaking, another one shows up, all your sheep are gone. Don't nobody else bring me no more news today about nothing that happened. I had enough bad news, not just for the day, I had enough bad news to last me a lifetime. But do you remember after all that bad news that the very first thing out of Job's mouth, the Lord give it,
And the Lord take
and
it.
the Lord take it away.
Blessed.
Blessed be the name of the Lord. The very first thing out of his mouth. Job, man, sometimes I think I'm going through something. But I look at what God allowed you to go through and how you responded to it. You just been a blessing to me. You know, we have to be open to the possibility that maybe God is using me to be a blessing to somebody, like God used Job to be a blessing to me. You know, sometimes we ask that question when we're going through something, Lord, why me? Well, why not you? Well, what is it about you that you ought to be exempt from anything that's unpleasant in life? And if I have to go through something, I'm glad for two things. I'm glad, number one, the restraining hand of God is upon Satan. If I got to go through something, I'm glad that God, just like when Satan wanted at Job, God limited what Satan could do to him. I'm glad the restraining hand of God is still upon Satan. And I know this because 1 Corinthians 10 verse 13, Paul said, there hath no temptation taken you, but such as is common to man. But God is faithful. See, God can't always count on us, but we can always count on Him.
Amen.
God is faithful, who will not suffer you to be tempted above that you are able to bear, but will with the temptation make a way of escape that you may be able to bear it.
Amen.
Lord, if I got to go through something, then I'm glad your restraining hand is upon Satan, and you've already measured my faith and won't allow it to be more than my faith can stand.
Amen.
And you know, if I got to go through something, who am I to ask why me? Because if the truth be told, anything we get, we deserve. You know what the Bible says about us? The wages of sin is death.
Amen.
Who are we to act like nothing bad should ever happen to me? Lord, why me? Why not you? Aren't you my child? Didn't you enroll in my service when you obeyed the gospel? Don't I have the right to use you as I see fit? Do you remember back Isaiah saying the potter had power over the clay? God can use me however He sees fit. And sometimes God chooses to use us with things that are unpleasant. But you got to know all of the story.
Yep.
See, Mary and Martha say, if you had been here, my brother had not died. Looking at it completely different from the way God was. Before Jesus ever came down there, He said, this ain't about Lazarus dying. I mean, if that was the only thing this was about, look, I got that covered. I'm the resurrection and the life. Look, I speak a word and people come back to life. It was about more than what Mary and Martha could see. And I submit to you that in our lives, it's about more than you and I can see.
That's right.
Oh, we see trouble. We need to work together more. We need to be more dedicated to the work of God and more serious about serving God in His kingdom. But you know God sees more than that. God said, yeah, that's what you all see. But I see so much more. That's why I don't approach it the way you all approach it. Lord, if you had been here, my brother had not died. You know, if God wasn't the compassionate God He was, Jesus could have answered them, the reason your brother died is because I chose to wait before I got here, so that he would die. He could have said it to him that way. I chose to wait. He's dead by my deliberate choice. But rather, He says to them, I am the resurrection and the life.
That's right.
The thing you worried about, I have absolute control over that.
Amen.
Is that really your problem, that your brother is dead? You know, is our problem really that we're struggling financially? Is our problem really that I'm sick and the doctors don't have much positive to say about my outcome? Is my problem that I'm having trouble in my house or trouble on my job? Is that really your problem? And that's your biggest problem?
Well,
God says, I'm the ruler of the universe.
amen.
Don't you know that everything happens according to either my determined or my permissive will? You know, everything happens that way. Either God determined it would happen or God allows it to happen. Everything happens for one of those two reasons. See, God says, I allowed Lazarus to die because I needed to show you all that I am more than you understand me to be.
Amen.
See, I'm not just a good teacher. I'm not just a healer of the sick. I'm God in the flesh. The God who has all power. And if it takes raising somebody you care about from the dead to prove it, then I'll do that to help you understand. And when Jesus goes out to the tomb, he tells them, take away the stone. And then he calls Lazarus, and he says, Lazarus, come forth. One old preacher said it's a good thing that he called Lazarus by name, or every dead body in the cemetery would have got
Better believe that. Better believe that.
And then he tells them, loose him and let him go. Can you imagine standing there and witnessing that? He's dead for a day. We know he's dead. Got the death certificate. The coroner has checked him. Yeah, he's good and dead. In fact, they tell him, look, you don't want to open that tomb by now. He said he started to smell. Lazarus, come forth. And Lazarus comes out of the tomb, and Jesus says, loose him and let him go. I don't know about you. If I was Lazarus, I'd have been mad at them. Look, I died serving God. And then you all brought me back again. Look, now I got to serve God again. That's why I died wrong this time. But they had limited God. Lord, if you had got here before he died, you could have did something. They tried to limit God by time. They had a plan. They tried to limit God by what they could reason. They didn't want their brother to die. They tried to limit God by desire. I think in our lives, we do much the same thing with God.
True.
We put limitations on God because we are not truly open to the fact that he is the Almighty God who has options available to him other than what we are able to think of.
Amen.
You know, I'm trying to learn not to tell God what to do.
Yes, sir.
I'm trying to learn when I pray this as a matter of faith, Lord, here's the problem. I don't know how you're going to work it out. Just help me trust you. Help me, Lord, when I undertake to do things that I will operate inside your will.
Amen.
Don't let me be like Saul and start go hunting for witches and that kind of thing and coming up with all kinds of ungodly solutions because I lack faith. Father, help me trust you. Help me be open to the possibility that you will bless me through something that I may not see as pleasant. God can do all of that. We have asked God for revival.
Yes, sir.
Do you know that it may be in the mind of God to bless us with revival by bringing some struggles and some rain before it brings some sunshine?
Well,
You know, we ask for revival and we want sunshine immediately. Right out the gate, we want everything to be good.
yes.
But you know, I have learned that you really appreciate something when you had to struggle for it.
That's right.
That's why when you raise your children, that's why you just don't give them everything they ask for.
Oh, yes.
Like you turn them into spoiled brats that think every time I put my hand out, you ought to put something in it. Sometimes what you do is you let them work for it. Because if you work for it, you'll appreciate it better. You know, like this next holiday coming up, do they make a Christmas list here? And your child just make a list of all they want for Christmas? Do you know one of the worst things you could do is buy them everything they have on that list? Because they'll start to thinking, all I got to do is make a list of stuff I want on it and you'll give it to them. Do you know that's why God tells us no sometimes when we pray?
That's right.
See, if I said yes to everything you prayed about, I'd turn you into a spoiled brat that thinks that everything you asked for, I ought to give you. Sometime in your best interest, I say no.
That's right.
Sometime in your best interest, I do what you ask, I just don't do it the way you ask me to do it.
That's right.
Lord, help us work better together. Well, maybe I got to weed out a few malcontents before you work better together. You know, sometimes God got to weed folk out. You ever read
yes.
John chapter 15? Jesus talked about I am the vine and you are the branches. And some of the branches, you know, that God purges. I'd say sometimes you got to get the weeds out before the plant can really grow.
Oh, yes.
But this I know. With God, all things are possible.
Amen. Praise the Lord.
We've asked Him, Father, bring us a revival. Father, help me trust your faithfulness.
Amen.
And not try to tell you when and how the revival's got to come. And not tell you when and how we got to work together and what we ought to accomplish 6 months from now. Father, help me remember that my place is just to work as hard as I can in your service.
Amen.
And let you handle the rest of it. And what we will find without fail is that when we are faithful to God, and when we are about the work of His kingdom, that God will bless us in ways we couldn't begin to imagine.
Amen.
I don't think either Martha or Mary was expecting that Jesus was going to go out to the cemetery, tell them to roll away the stone where Lazarus was buried, and call Lazarus by name and have their brother restored to life. They didn't think that. And I can tell that by how they were acting when Jesus got there. See, because if they really believed that, they wouldn't have been there crying and sorrowing. They would have been overjoyed that now Jesus is here. We don't know what God knows.
True.
We can't do what God can do. So we ought not try to think for God.
Amen.
And tell Him, Lord, this is how I need you to fix my problem. You limit God when you do that.
That's right.
God has something better in mind to help us be better suited to serve Him. You know, if we ever ask God a question, it ought to be for the purpose of trying to understand better what His will is. But we ought not ever question God's faithfulness. God is faithful. If we could line up the characters from the Bible, every one of them would attest to the fact that God is faithful. Do you remember what David said, Psalm 37, verse 25? I have been young and now am old. Yet have I never seen the righteous forsaken, nor his seed begging bread. Do you know what David was saying? God is faithful.
Amen.
When you go read Hebrews chapter 11, we usually call that the Bible Hall of Faith. Every one of those individuals listed there, Abraham, Moses, David, Samson, every last one of them would tell you, I haven't always been faithful to God, but God has always been faithful to me.
That's right.
If we ask God for revival, we ought to believe that it's as good as done.
Amen.
Now, I'm not going to try to tell God the details. I'm not going to try to tell God the time frame that He has to work it out in. But if we ask in faith, according to God's will, then we know that we have the things that we've asked Him for.
Praise God.
I just believe that God is going to do a mighty work here in Trinidad.
Amen. Hallelujah.
But it's going to take us working together as the family of God,
Yes, sir.
willing to sacrifice where necessary, being thankful for whatever and however God chooses to use us. And man, the next time God blesses me to be here, and I already got it in my mind, it's going to be sometime next year. So it'll be early next year or a little bit later next year. I want to come when it's cold in the States and come enjoy this warm weather again. But just come see the grace of God spread through this area, and just to be encouraged by the fact that what God has said He will do, He performs.
Amen.
God takes care of His children.
That's right.
He wants His kingdom to grow.
Yes, sir.
And I don't have any doubt in me. I've seen God do it. And you sit back and you look at the people God uses. And when I look at the church and all that, there must be a God. Because a lot of us together don't know enough to cause something like that to happen. A lot of us together don't have the resources or the ability to build what God has built. You know, I shared with Brother Murchison been there. He's seen what the church in Lord. That's God. I mean, you got a congregation, about 350 people together on Sunday. Black people, white people. And did you know there's more than black and white people in the world? Yeah, I mean, man, we have all kinds of nationality. Come together as the family of God. And my skin color is not the primary consideration.
Amen.
Yeah, I notice what you are when I see you. But more important is whether or not you are my brother or sister in the Lord.
Amen. Praise God.
And God just brings together people from all walks of life. And we worship together as the family of God.
Yes, sir.
That had to be God.
Amen.
Look, I had enough trouble with just 5 people in a household trying to keep things together. And you imagine trying to keep 350 folk together?
Well,
That has to be God. And the God that we serve in Maryland is the same God that we serve here in Trinidad.
amen.
And what he has done for one of his children, he can and will do for all of his children.
Yes, sir. Praise
The
God.
wild card in all of that is how willing are we to work in the master service.
Yes, sir.
You know, God doesn't just give us that. You know, because if he just gave it to us, we wouldn't appreciate it. Can you imagine if the church next Sunday was 500 people? We start complaining about all the problems that 500, we don't have enough chairs. It's too hot in here. Hey, I don't know everybody by name. And well, you ask God for the church to grow. When you work for it, you appreciate it.
Amen.
And my prayer is that we will work together here and allow God to bless us as only God can.
Amen.
And that we will not limit God by trying to think for him or tell him how it has to be done. And I just know that God will bless us beyond our wildest imagination.
Yes, sir.
God calls men through the preaching of the gospel.
Yes, sir.
The good news that Jesus died, that he was buried, that he was raised the third day for our justification. You know, we don't need to preach anything more than that. You know, you go places now and people are trying to work people all up into a religious frenzy, trying to get them excited about a whole bunch of nothing. Romans 1:16 still says, I am not ashamed of the gospel of Christ,
It is the power.
for it is the power of God unto salvation, to everyone that believeth, to the Jew first and also to the Greek. The power is in the gospel.
Amen.
We just need to teach Jesus and him crucified and stand on that truth, and God will bless us. Perhaps as someone here this evening, you want to become a member of the family of God. You want to be baptized in the name of Jesus for the remission of sins. Then we bid you to come as we stand and sing the song of invitation.